Count Cagliostro. Just say that name out loud. Cagliostro.
It has a real ring to it, doesn't it?
It really does. It sounds like a spell.
Where?
Or maybe the villain in a Gothic novel who just sweeps into the room in this velvet cape and, steals your soul.
Yeah, it's incredibly theatrical. And honestly, for the better part of 2 centuries, that is exactly how history is treated him, like a character, almost a caricature.
Right.
The Prince of Scoundrels, the arch quack. I mean, the man who supposedly swindled half the aristocracy of Europe right before the French Revolution.
Yeah, Thomas Carlyle really went after him, called him the king of liars. But today, for this deep dive, we are doing something a little different.
We are?
We aren't just reading the usual prosecution's file. We're taking a stack of sources, specifically W.R.H. Trowbridge's biography, and we're going to sort of act as the defense attorney for history's favorite villain. Because Trowbridge has a theory that is, honestly, it's kind of mind-blowing.
It is a fascinating, completely contrarian view. Trowbridge argues that most of what we think we know about Cagliostro comes straight from police files and French spies.
Spies who had a very vested interest in destroying him.
Exactly. He suggests that Cagliostro might not have been a charlatan at all, or, well, at least not the malicious swindler he's painted as.
So the mission for today's deep dive is to basically strip away the diamond necklace affair, which we will get to because it is wild.
No, it's totally wild.
But we want to look at the actual man. Was he this misunderstood friend of humanity, a martyr framed by history? Or was he actually just a low-life Sicilian criminal named Giuseppe Balsamo who pulled off the longest con in history?
And that right there is the Balsamo legend. That's the core mystery we have to solve first, because before you can even judge Cagliostro, you have to decide if he was actually this completely different guy.
Okay, so let's set the scene for everyone. The official story, the one the French police pushed and the history books just accepted, is that the refined, glittering Count Cagliostro was actually born as a street urchin in Palermo named Giuseppe Balsamo. So who was this Balsamo guy? Because the sources make him sound like a total piece of work.
Piece of work is putting it mildly. If we look at the records from Palermo, Balsamo is about as far from a count as you can possibly get.
Right.
He was born to a bankrupt tradesman, grew up on the streets. He was described as a sort of Apache figure.
Wait,
Like it was a slang term for a violent Parisian street thug back in the day, but it fits perfectly here. He was rough, he was involved in street brawls, and he had absolutely zero respect for authority. His family was so desperate to tame him.
So naturally they sent him to a monastery.
Naturally. The Ben Fratelli monks. He was supposed to be a novice there. And there's this incredible incident that really paints a picture of the young Balsamo.
Oh, the dinner reading.
Yes. So during dinner, his job was to read aloud from the lives of the saints, while the monks ate in complete silence.
Which is usually a pretty somber affair, Saint so-and-so prayed for 40 days, that kind of thing.
Exactly. But Balsamo got bored. Or maybe he just wanted to cause chaos. So right in the middle of dinner, he stops reading the saints' names and just starts improvising.
I love this part.
He begins reading out the names of the most notorious local courtesans and prostitutes in Palermo.
No way. He's reading a list of local hookers to a room full of silent monks.
Very loudly. And substituting their names for the Virgin Mary and the saints.
Oh, wow.
Needless to say, the monks were not amused. He was beaten and immediately expelled.
Okay, that's hilarious, but it also just shows he's a total rebel. But being a brat in a monastery doesn't exactly make you a master criminal.
No, but the forgery does. After he got kicked out, he started using his talent for drawing to forge theater tickets, leave passes for monks, even wills. He was a petty scammer, and he dabbled in sorcery.
But not the high-minded mysticism Cagliostro later preached, right?
Yeah, not at all. Gritty, street-level scams to frighten uneducated people out of their money. Which brings us to the Morano scam.
Yes. This story feels like something out of a mob movie.
It really does. So Balsamo finds this gullible goldsmith named Morano. And Balsamo tells him, I know where there's buried treasure in a cave near the sea, but it's guarded by demons.
And Morano just buys this.
Hook, line, and sinker. Balsamo convinces Morano to bring 60 ounces of gold to appease the spirits.
Of course.
They go to this cave at night. Balsamo starts chanting, doing the whole dramatic incantation bit, and suddenly the demons appear.
Let me guess. Balsamo's drinking buddies in masks.
Precisely. They beat Morano to a pulp, took his gold, and left him there bleeding in the caves. That is the kind of man Giuseppe Balsamo was. Vicious, petty, violent.
And we really have to mention his marriage, because this is where the character assessment gets genuinely dark.
Yes.
He marries a 14-year-old girl, Lorenza Feliciani. And the source material is pretty blunt about this. He didn't just marry her, he used her as bait.
It's a very sordid history. He essentially pimped her out. He used her beauty to entrap wealthy men as they traveled across Europe, blackmailing them or just selling her favors to pay the rent.
So here is the main conflict. The French police and the press later claim that this thug, forger, and pimp reinvented himself as the refined, wealthy, incredibly generous Count Cagliostro.
And Trowbridge argues that this identification was a deliberate smear campaign. He thinks it's completely impossible.
Why, though? I mean, people reinvent themselves all the time. Why couldn't a thug learn some manners, buy a nice wig, and fake it?
It's the psychological discrepancy. Balsamo is greedy, vicious, and cruel to his wife. Cagliostro, by all accounts, even the accounts of his worst enemies, was incredibly generous.
Right.
He healed the poor for free. He was seemingly wealthy without ever begging for money. And crucially, he treated his wife, whom he called the Queen of Sheba, with absolute adoration.
So Trowbridge is asking, can one man really inhabit two such completely different realities? Can a guy who beats people up for gold suddenly become a man who gives away fortunes?
Exactly. And then there's the physical evidence. The nose.
The nose.
It's a small detail, but a really critical one. Giuseppe Balsamo had a very distinctive deformity. His nose was described in the Palermo police records as ecasse, smashed flat.
Probably from one of those street fights.
Very likely. And Cagliostro, he had a perfectly normal, perhaps slightly large nose, but certainly not smashed.
That feels like a massive detail for the police to just overlook. Wanted, man with flat nose. Found, man with normal nose. Close enough, arrest him.
It highly suggests the police were working backward from a conclusion they already wanted. Plus, when Cagliostro became famous, no one who had known Balsamo in Palermo ever identified Cagliostro as the same man.
Okay, so let's assume for the sake of argument that Trowbridge is right. Let's pretend Cagliostro isn't Balsamo.
Okay.
If he's not a criminal mastermind, then who was he? Because when you look at his time in London in 1776, he doesn't look like a mastermind of anything. He looks like a victim.
The London episode is really the cornerstone of the defense. If Cagliostro was a master swindler, his time in London was an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
He and his wife arrived with money and jewels. They took nice apartments on Whitcomb Street. And Cagliostro just set up a laboratory to study chemistry and alchemy.
Wait, so he wasn't trying to break into high society? He wasn't running a long con on the rich locals?
Not at all. He was totally obsessed with his experiments. But he made a mistake. He showed a manuscript he possessed to some new friends.
This is the prediction system, right? The lottery numbers.
Yes. He claimed to have a mathematical Kabbalistic system for calculating winning lottery numbers.
Yeah.
But, and this is the part that drives skeptics crazy, he refused to use it for himself.
Why?
He said it was beneath a man of science and would anger the spirits.
Which, if you think about it psychologically, is the ultimate soft sell.
Oh, absolutely.
I have a magic book that prints money, but I'm too holy to use it. That just makes everyone else want it so much more.
Precisely. And enter the villains, a Lord and Lady Scott. In reality, they were a Mr. Scott and a Miss Mary Fry, and they were professional grifters.
Ah.
They befriended the Cagliostros, realized there was money there, and Mary Fry just started begging for lottery numbers.
And Cagliostro eventually gives in.
Just to get rid of her. He gives Mary Fry a number, she plays it, and she wins 1,500 guineas.
That is a massive fortune in 1776.
It was huge. And naturally, she wanted more. But Cagliostro said no. He told her to take the money and go live a quiet life. But the Scots were incredibly greedy. They decided that if he wouldn't give them the numbers, they would just destroy him.
This leads to the diamond necklace trap. And we should clarify for everyone listening, this is not the famous diamond necklace affair with the Queen yet. This is an earlier, much grubbier version.
Right. Mary Fry gives Cagliostro's wife a little box. It has two compartments. In one, there's snuff. In the other, a diamond necklace. She offers the snuff. Cagliostro's wife accepts the box, not realizing there's a necklace hidden inside.
And then Fry accuses them of stealing it.
Exactly. It's a classic shakedown. Pay us, or we go to the police.
So when Cagliostro refused to be blackmailed or give up more numbers, they unleashed hell.
They really did. They sued him for false debts. They raided his house and stole his manuscript. And then, and this really shows you the hysteria of the time, they got a warrant for his arrest for practicing witchcraft.
Witchcraft. In London. In 1776?
I know.
That sounds like something from a century earlier.
It was completely absurd. But the gang knew exactly how to manipulate the legal system. They hired a rascally lawyer named Priddle, and Cagliostro was thrown into a sponging house.
A sponging house?
It's a pre-prison holding facility for debtors. A miserable, filthy place run by a bailiff named Saunders. And this is where the master criminal theory totally fell apart for me. Because what does Cagliostro do while he's rotting in this cell?
He doesn't bribe his way out.
No. He spends his remaining money paying the debts of the other prisoners to set them free.
Wait, really?
Yes.
He's being fleeced by con artists, he's about to lose everything he owns, and he's bailing out strangers.
It's incredibly altruistic. Or just incredibly naive. Eventually, the witchcraft charge was dismissed by the magistrate, a Mr. Howarth, as being completely frivolous. But through legal trickery, the Scots managed to keep his money and jewels.
So he leaves England totally broke.
He leaves with 50 guineas to his name, feeling completely betrayed by English justice. So Trowbridge asks the reader, does this sound like a mastermind swindler to you? Or does it sound like a gullible, slightly eccentric man who got taken for a ride by professional crooks?
It definitely paints him as the victim. But here's the thing. He didn't just fade away. He bounced back harder than anyone.
He did.
To understand how he went from a broke victim in London to the most famous man in Europe, we really have to look at the environment he was operating in.
Context is absolutely everything here. We're in the late 18th century. It's the age of reason. Science, encyclopedias, Voltaire, the decline of the church. But paradoxically, it was also the age of magic.
Which seems counterintuitive. You'd think science would kill off the magic.
It actually creates a vacuum. The aristocracy was losing faith in traditional religion. It felt old and dusty to them. But science was cold.
Right.
They were bored, they were wealthy, and they were desperate for mystery. They didn't want the church, but they still wanted the supernatural. They wanted to believe in something.
So you have this explosion of occultism. You've got Mesmer running around supposedly curing people with magnets. You've got Swedenborg having lunch with angels.
Exactly. And the alchemists had completely rebranded. It wasn't just about turning lead into gold anymore. That was old school. The new obsession was the elixir of life. Spiritual regeneration, living forever.
So Cagliostro just walks into this void. He looks mysterious. He claims to have ancient knowledge from the pyramids, and he offers them exactly what they're craving.
He packages it brilliantly. He invents something called Egyptian Masonry. He claimed it was the original form of worship used by the biblical patriarchs like Abraham and Moses.
And he called himself the Grand Kafta.
Grand Kafta.
Yeah, that is a fantastic title. It sounds like a comic book villain, but in a good way. And the product he was selling wasn't just a handshake and a secret password. It was regeneration.
Moral and physical regeneration. And the physical regeneration cure is, well, it's intense.
Intense is one word for it. I was reading the protocol in the notes, and it's a 40-day retreat. You have to fast, you get bled, and then you take a secret white liquid.
And the promise. You would lose your hair, your teeth, and your skin.
Hold on.
Yep.
You drink the secret sauce and your teeth fall out. That's not a cure. That's radiation poisoning. And people actually signed up for this.
They lined up for it. The promise was that after you molted like a snake, everything would grow back brand new. You would be physically pristine and could live for 5,557 years.
5,557 years. That is a very specific number.
Cagliostro loves specifics. It added to the credibility.
Yeah.
And unlike regular Masonry, which was strictly a boys' club, he allowed women to join. His wife was the Grand Mistress, the Queen of Sheba.
Which brings us to Courland. This is modern-day Latvia. Cagliostro arrives there in 1779, and this is where he really starts to shine. He targets the von Needham family, the highest nobility in the duchy.
This episode is crucial because we have a very sharp eyewitness account from Countess Elisa von der Reck. She was highly intelligent, grieving the recent death of her brother, and completely obsessed with the occult. She's a perfect target, but also a very keen observer.
But her father, Marshal von Needham, was a bit of a skeptic, wasn't he?
He was. He basically challenged Cagliostro to prove his powers in front of everyone. So Cagliostro agrees to a seance, but he doesn't do it himself. He uses a pupil, a child medium.
Okay.
He literally takes the Marshal's 5-year-old son.
He just grabs a 5-year-old for a seance.
Yes. He anoints the boy's head and hand with what he calls the oil of wisdom. He puts the kid behind a screen, and the boy just starts describing visions. He says he sees his sister, who is far away, clutching her heart in pain.
Okay, that's disturbing.
Then he says he sees his older brother, who is supposed to be away on a trip, returning home unexpectedly.
And what happens?
The marshal actually checks. It turns out the brother had returned at that exact time. And the sister did suffer a severe heart palpitation at that exact moment.
That is spooky. How do you even explain that? Was the kid in on it?
A 5-year-old. Highly unlikely. It silenced the skeptics immediately. Cagliostro was suddenly hailed as a living prophet. But here is where it gets complicated, and we really see Cagliostro's quick thinking.
Okay.
Elisa the Countess presses him. She said, okay, you proved your power. Now show me my dead brother.
Ah, the big request. She wants to see a ghost.
Cagliostro promises a magic dream. He says her brother will appear to her in her sleep.
And does he?
No. 2 nights in a row she sleeps, but no brother. Absolutely nothing happens.
So the fraud is exposed.
You would think so. But this is where Cagliostro's genius, or maybe his delusion, really comes in. He pivots. He tells her that his spiritual masters, the 7 spirits who guide him, forbade the vision.
Why would they forbid it?
Because, he claimed, in her current emotional state, the vision would be too dangerous for her health. He spun a total failure into a protective act of authority. He wasn't unable to do it. The spirits wouldn't let him because they cared about her.
That is incredibly slick. It's gaslighting, sure, but it's very high-level gaslighting.
It completely kept him hooked. He even got the aristocrats to go out digging for buried treasure on their estate at Wilson, claiming ghosts were guarding it. Just like the Morano scam years earlier, but this time with dukes instead of goldsmiths.
It seems like he always walked this very fine line between genuine believer and sheer manipulator.
That is the core of the Trowbridge argument. Was he a conscious fraud, or did he eventually believe his own mythology? Trowbridge suggests that Cagliostro might have been a man who blended genuine humanitarian ideals. He really did want to regenerate mankind with the necessary charlatanism to survive.
He had to put on a show to get them to listen to the sermon.
Exactly. He preached moral regeneration, but he knew the dukes and countesses wanted parlor tricks and glowing elixirs, so he gave them both.
But it couldn't last forever. And this brings us to the tragedy that we teased at the very beginning. The diamond necklace affair. This is the event that ruined him, and it involves Marie Antoinette.
It is the absolute scandal of the century. We don't have time to unpack the whole thing here. It's a deep dive for another day. But essentially, a con woman named Countess de Lamont forged the queen's signature to steal a diamond necklace worth millions.
Literally the most expensive necklace in France.
Correct. And when the plot unraveled, de Lamont desperately needed a scapegoat, so she pointed the finger at Cagliostro. She claimed he was the mastermind behind it all, that he'd enchanted the cardinal involved.
And because he was this mysterious Grand Kafta, people just believed it.
He spent 9 months in the Bastille. He was eventually exonerated. He actually proved his innocence completely, but the damage was done. The French police, totally embarrassed that they couldn't pin it on him, dug up the old Balsamo files.
Right, the Palermo records.
They leaked the story that he was a street criminal. They destroyed his reputation.
And he was chased out of France, then England, and finally ends up in Rome,
where he made the fatal mistake of trying to start a Masonic lodge in the Pope's backyard. The Inquisition arrested him. He was condemned to life imprisonment in the fortress of San Leo. He died there, defiant to the very end, refusing to recant any of it.
It's a tragic end for a man who honestly lit up Europe. So what does this all mean for us when we look back at the front of brass as Carlyle mocked him?
I think Cagliostro represents the romance of the 18th century. He was the counterweight to the cold logic of the Enlightenment. He offered wonder. He offered hope that death wasn't the end, that we could be better, stronger, younger.
Even if you use a little oil of wisdom and a few trick snuff boxes to do it.
Even then. As Trowbridge says, even if he used tricks, he may have truly believed his mission was real. He remains an enigma. We can strip away the Balsamo legend, we can debunk the police reports, but there is still something at the center of Cagliostro that is hard to explain. A charisma, a sheer power that made very sophisticated people believe the impossible.
And maybe that's the real magic, not the alchemy, but the ability to make people dream in an age that was becoming very cynical.
Well said.
And it makes you think about today, right? If you look at modern wellness gurus or these tech billionaires chasing biohacking to live forever, it's the exact same playbook.
It really is.
They sell exclusive retreats, secret supplements, and the promise of basically outsmarting death,
Yeah.
all pitched to people who feel disillusioned with mainstream science. The Grand Kafta would probably make a fortune in Silicon Valley today.
Oh, he'd have 1 million followers, easily.
So, if you are listening to this, what do you think? Was Count Cagliostro a misunderstood mystic, a friend of humanity as he claimed? Or was he just a lucky grifter who knew exactly how to play to a bored audience? It is definitely something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.